Hello everyone, today I'm going to be sharing with you a watercolor for relaxation tutorial that I love to do in my watercolor workshops to create a large piece. It's going to cover a lot of different concepts. It's going to cover wet on wet painting, color mixing, getting some hard edges, and then also layering. So if you're new to watercolor, or if you're just really an experienced watercolorist but you want to find more time in your life to just relax and enjoy, you might enjoy this tutorial. And this is a piece that I started this morning in my watercolor workshop. And what I ask students to do is I ask them to select one shape, and it can be an organic shape such as a rock. So I was inspired by these little river rocks that we have in our garden. It could be a leaf shape, so one organic shape or a geometric shape. So like one of my students chose a shape with a hard edge, like a triangle. So of course you're welcome to do something like that as well. I'm not quite done with the work, and I actually thought it would make a good video if you could see a little bit more of the process. So as we get started, I have my watercolor set here, and I'm going to be watering it down a little bit. So if you have a little dish that you like to mix in, then that can be really helpful. All right. So also you might notice that I'm talking really softly. This class is designed to really help you relax. So I'm personally a big fan of meditation and also like soft-spoken watercolor videos. So I have a couple of those that I've been working on and creating for you. So be sure to check out my other videos. So all you need today is your watercolor paper, any size will do, your set of watercolors, a water can, and then I'm going to be using a round brush. This is by Princeton. It's a size 8. I will link to the supplies below in case you want to order any of these for yourself. I also have salt because that's something really fun to kind of play with when you're painting watercolors. So the first thing you're going to do, if you would like to not just freestyle it, you can sketch out a few of the shapes. So what I ask my students to do is I ask them to sketch like 4 or 5 of the shape that they want to paint. And I said to leave some space around them. And then what you can do is later you can make them touching. So you see how these are actually touching, and then these are actually overlapping. So I don't draw that. I actually just free paint that later. So go ahead and sketch like 4 or 5 shapes. I know there's more here, and make some space in between them. This class is all about like following your intuition. So I would say do a variety of large and small shapes, and then you can kind of start to paint them in just a minute using your favorite colors. So large and small will create a little bit of variety in your artwork. As you can see later, you'll go in and you can do a little bit of overlapping. You don't actually have to pre-sketch them all. You'll get really good with whatever shape you're using. I personally like the rock shape, and I was gonna use more like earthy tones for this one since I've been doing some really bright work. Okay, so I'm using this great paper by Fabriano, which is 25% cotton, and I'm wetting out my shape in advance. And what I really like is the way that the cotton absorbs some of the water. So this is gonna be a little bit wet on wet, but because my other shapes have pretty much dried, you're gonna see some of the layers, you'll actually see through them. And I want you to go for like whatever color really calls out to you. If you've ever used this palette before, it's a really nice watercolor palette for painting landscape colors, but it's also a bit thick. It reminds me a little bit of gouache. So I like to water down my Kuretake watercolors when I use those. And I also like to mix new colors. I would say pick one of your bigger shapes to do first. And you're gonna paint in that shape, just pushing the water wherever you want it to go. I also suggest starting with like maybe lighter colors first and then building up more color. So that's why I went for a really light color this first one, okay? Something else that'll work really well is if you repeat the color somewhere else in your painting, maybe a little bit darker the second time. So again, I can repeat it, but I haven't wet. I'm gonna go ahead and just wet out my shape first. So wet. It's okay, I had a little paint on my brush. And you can see that makes a really nice light color. And then go ahead and get the pigment, the paint. You can press or push color down into like one end of it, which looks really, really cool. Okay. And I don't know, I think that this comes out really beautiful, but it also just teaches you a lot about how to use watercolor. So I find it really relaxing and really fun. Okay. Now what I would do, once you have like your first 5 shapes colored in, you can kind of freestyle a little bit. Like that one I love, I just freestyled it. So what you can do, you might need to turn your paper a tiny bit. And you can start to paint out new shapes. I want you to make them like touch in some way. And so when you paint out your new shape, one thing I always teach is that watercolor will follow the water that you've put down already. So your paint is gonna follow the water. So in that way, you can get the color that you wanna work with. I'm gonna do some gold. And actually wanna see if I can get my gold paint to follow the shape of the rocks. And so I think this is great if you're interested in creating a more abstract piece. But you can also see how some of the stones look really, really realistic as well. Adding a little texture and things like that. Just finding the edge of your shape. And it might overlap a little bit. If you want to try the salting technique, you just need a little table salt. I like the kosher salt because it's thicker flakes. And you can sprinkle it on while it's wet, and then don't paint anything once you've sprinkled it on, okay? So continue to like turn your paper, and I want you to just look for new spaces that you might want to try a little shape that you think it's gonna look good. So again, I'm free painting now, and I'm wetting it out. There we go. So now for the rest of the video, you're just gonna see me painting. Make sure that when you're painting, you're breathing really nicely so that you're fully relaxing. So take a lot of deep breaths into your belly center, which is the center of your creativity, and make sure to exhale it all out while you're painting. And you can just enjoy the process of painting, and I'll come back with you and chat with you a little more at the very end of this video so we can see how the piece turns out. All right, artists, thank you guys so much for taking time out for yourself today and also for doing a little bit of painting with me. I want you to really trust yourself and trust your intuition. When you think that your painting is finished, take a little look, see if there's any little tiny shape or something else, somewhere that you think is needed, and go ahead and just put your little finishing touches on whatever you think is needed in your painting. If you're not done yet, don't worry. You can of course continue painting after this video. I love to do these exercises on the weekends and also in the evenings, kind of like right before I go to bed. It's super relaxing, and it also can just help you really wind down for the night and get a good night's sleep. So hopefully you created something really beautiful. Please let me know, or you're just feeling really good after doing this. Let me know in the comments what it was like for you, how it felt while you were painting. And as you can see, we've got some spaces where we see some layers, where we see some wet on wet effects, where we've got some overlapping, where we've got some really rich pigmentation, and then some color mixing. It always looks different once it dries. So of course, when it is dry, you're welcome to go back in and do any little tweaks that you want to do to change it or to fix it. I hope to meet you one day on my virtual watercolor workshop, which I will link below. We have 3 virtual workshops this month for the month of January. So feel free to join one of those. If you want to be alive, if you want to paint live in person, not in person, but if you want to paint live virtually with me. Otherwise, just keep doing the tutorials, and I'm sure that you're going to really grow and hopefully find a lot of peace and a lot of relaxation through my videos. So thanks again, and I will see you next time. Please like and subscribe if you'd like to be notified about the next video when it comes out. Great job, everybody.